A very good morning to you. It's good to have you after the weekend. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. And today we talk to you about the latest turmoil in the markets because of Trump. My co-anchors today are Hussaina and Saloni. Welcome both of you. It's good to have you here. And since it's the first day of the week, it's not usual for us to talk about bad news. But today we've got good news and bad news. The bad news, of course, is Trump's latest bombshell of a new charge for H1-B visas. But there's a glimmer of hope in the second title, which is that GCCs may be the solution. But there's bad news again, where the leading industrial state, financial state, which is Maharashtra, has tripled its debt in the last decade. And let's begin with the first story first. As I told you, Trump's latest bombshell is the H1B visa. It is a new strategy for charging every new applicant for an H1B visa, which allows him to work in the US, a fee of $100,000. That's crippling. And the reason why Trump wants to do it, of course, it does not state, obviously, is the markets know that of the 37 trillion debt that America has, almost 9 trillion debt is due for repayment anytime soon. The last time America could not meet its payment obligations was during the Great Depression. But that time, creditors saw that America was bouncing with vitality and new jobs were being created, so they agreed to a rollover. This time, most indicators in America show that it's declining. Will the financiers, will the lenders agree to a rollover, or will Trump have to pay that money, or will he have to borrow more to repay that debt? Whichever way you look at it, the situation is not pleasant in America, and Trump needs to raise money quickly. He hoped to raise it through the tariffs, but other countries, almost every country, has tried to find alternative routes to do business. Maybe not India, but everyone else has. And Trump finds that his money raising from the tariff was not large enough, so now he's set up on a new scheme of the H1B visas. Now that is going to affect software professionals and medical professionals and a lot of operators in America. But it's not just India that will be hurt. It's companies which work with India, like Amazon. And the table on the right-hand side of a chart tells you which are the companies that send the maximum number of H1B visas to America. These companies will be hurt. And indirectly, America will be hurt because it's going to push up the cost of services much higher in America. America has not clarified yet whether the existing H1B visas will be cancelled or whether they'll be allowed to stay till the termination date. With America, there's no certainty about anything. So travel agencies have told people, if you're an American and want to go on a holiday, don't stay there. And to people who are outside America, having a holiday anywhere in the world, they should come back immediately because they do not know what the state will be. So get back with your old visas till there's clarity. Airlines are packed to the brim, and the markets are likely to see a tumble today with the leading players in IT crashing in terms of pricing, at least to some extent. But there's a ray of hope. And the ray of hope comes in the second story about GCCs. Hussaina, could you come in?
Mention that the US has just dropped a bombshell on the tech industry, charging $1,000 for $1 lakh for all new H1B visa applications. Now, while it is a blow to global mobility, but for India's global capability centers, which is GCCs, it's not just a setback, but it's also an opportunity. Now, the US move makes it harder and more expensive for Indian tech talent to work on site in America. But instead of relying on visa dependent outsourcing, US companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are now expected to double down on their Indian operations, particularly in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Gurugram. And So, sir, India already hosts around 1,760 GCCs, and that number is expected to cross 2,000 by 2026, according to NASCOM. Now, these centers aren't just support offices anymore. They're working on high end tasks like product research and development, analytics, AI, and healthcare tech. But here's the catch: only 8% of Indian GCCs are considered top performers, according to Boston Consulting Group. 66% are just out there being average. And that is the problem. Many GCCs have yet to mature and position themselves as value adding innovation hubs rather than cost saving back offices. And with the US tightening its immigration policies, India's brain gain might accelerate as skilled professionals return and remain in India. But for GCCs to truly capitalize on this shift, they need to move up the value chain. They need to focus on IP creation, critical decision making, and product ownership. So this story is just a clear wake up call for GCCs. They can no longer be passive delivery centers. If India wants to lead the next phase of global IT innovation, it must foster an ecosystem where creativity, ownership, and deep tech thrive, not just cost efficiency. So the question here is, sir, do you think that India's GCCs can bounce back and they can lead this global change?
Hussaina, your story does provide some hope to a country like India, which depends heavily on income from remittances for these workers who go overseas. Will India be able to scale this GCC up? I am not yet sure. And there are two reasons for that. Earlier, many people preferred going overseas because they would learn from other people also. They may not want to stay in India and they'll find their own way to go to other countries rather than stay in India. Many Indians have the travel itch and the desire to work overseas. The second problem is India's education centers are very poorly equipped, and the ones which are good are few in numbers. In percentage terms, they are pathetically low. As a result, GCCs want to become bigger in India, but they lack the talent support that India is supposed to provide. India has not looked at education seriously. And these two factors together may limit the growth of GCCs, even though they offer a silver lining and possibly a strategy to de risk the country. Let's see what happens. But thanks, Susanna. Good story. And that takes us to the next story, and that is on Maharashtra. Saloni, please, can we have you?
Yes, sir. So the story is about the states of India, which they have the debt on the all the states have tripled in a decade. So the Comptroller and Auditor General of India (CAG) have released a decadal analysis, and according to it, India's states are in a huge debt that has tripled in a decade. The total public debt of all 28 states in 2013 to 14 was rupees 70.57 lakh crore. It then rose to rupees 59.6 lakh crore in 2022 to 2023. This means debt grew more than 3.3 times in 10 years, eating up a bigger share of states' economic output. Measured against gross state domestic product, which is GSDP, debt went up from 16.66% in 2013 to 14 to nearly 23% by 2022 to 23. Now the question arises, where the burden is the heaviest and where is it the lowest? So Punjab's debt to GSDP ratio is 40.35%, which is the highest. It is followed by Nagaland, which is 37.15%, and then West Bengal, which is 33.7%. On the other hand, Odisha kept its debt ratio at just 8.45%, while Maharashtra is 14.64% and Gujarat is 16.37%. They all have managed to keep relatively lower levels. The state's combined debt was equivalent to 22.17% of India's GDP, which stood at rupees 268.9 lakh crore in FY23. So the report flagged a breach of the so-called golden rule of borrowing, which says government should raise debt only for investment, not to fund operating costs. In financial year 2023, 11 states, including Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, West Bengal, Kerala, Bihar, and Tamil Nadu, spent a part of their borrowings on meeting revenue deficits instead of capital expenditures. In Punjab and Andhra Pradesh, capital spending was as low as 26% and 17% of net borrowings, respectively. In Haryana and Himachal Pradesh, only about half of the debt went into capital projects. This report also shows how governments are funding their spending. So what's your take on this?
Saloni, thank you very much. It's an alarming state, and the states of India have been borrowing, especially Maharashtra and many northern states. Effectively, India will have to find out a way to control the states from spending too much, from being profligate. But the catch is here. Most of the people who misuse money are politicians themselves, which is why the largest scam, financial scam in India in recent times is the irrigation scam, and that has not been investigated. And the person is suspected to be behind the scam has been cleared of all charges. So you have a problem. The sugarcane lobby has many cooperative banks folding up. Nobody's been indicted except the banks have been closed down. So politics has its own way of trying to protect the guilty and thereby create new avenues for the powerful to remove money from the exchequer, and the borrowing goes not into capital assets but into meeting personal expenses disguised as projects in the country. Sad, but that is the way things are. Thank you, Saloni. This was good. Thanks again. And that takes me to the end of today's session, which is about comments and questions. But before I do that, just a reminder, please click the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Click the like button. That helps us immensely. But most of all, please tell all your friends about us. It helps us grow faster. And that in turn takes me to the first comment that comes in. And one question is whether the H1-B visa charges are just a method of mopping up revenues, or is it a pressure tactic against India? It could be both. Trump is miffed with India because India did not listen to him, and India went ahead and continued purchasing oil from Russia. USA also realizes the indispensability of India when it comes to building a kind of a bulwark against China and Russia. So Trump does not want to antagonize India, but he has no choice but to raise revenues. $9 trillion up for repayment. And that's a large amount, and Trump may not be able to get that kind of money together. And if he has to borrow money, it'll come at higher costs because the coupon rate on debt is bound to increase if he has to go back to the market to try pulling up money. Already it's gone up. It'll go up even further. And that takes me to the second question about GCC centers. How are GCC centers of players like Amazon and Microsoft doing? Well, they're large companies, and they've invested heavily, not only on the campuses, but also in training people constantly round the clock so that even if someone leaves, they have enough people to replace them with. That costs a lot of money and a lot of patience. Many other players in the GCC business are people with shorter timelines and very, very little additional funds, which is why, as a news report said, that GCCs scaling up may be a little difficult. And that takes me to the third question. Why has Maharashtra's debt risen so much? As I told you, a lot of money is embezzled out of the system. For instance, the irrigation scam which I talked about, or the losses through the cooperative banks held by the sugarcane lobby. Or in turn, you have big fanciful schemes like desalination of water. But that's a story we'll do separately. But all these are white elephants. Maharashtra has not been able to retain talent, has not been able to rustle up new investments, because of a deteriorating law and order situation. Look at the riots that took place because of the Aurangzeb factor. Look at the language factor that created riots. You can't have a peaceful business environment if you have riots just around the corner. And a state government which refuses to call elections till the Supreme Court puts pressure on the Election Commission, which is complicit in allowing elections not to take place. Maharashtra has its own problems. And when you look at politics more than commerce, rather than the economy, you're going to have problems like this. And more debt means more taxes. It means higher inflation. It means the middle class is going to get squeezed badly. And that takes me to the end of today's session. It is wonderful to have you here. The long weekend made your absence a little sharper. But for today, have a lovely time. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Take care.